let's go into this. So let's set the scene because there's some people that are going to watch this going to have no idea what the fuck's going on. So I just want to explain it for you guys. In the comic book space, right now, the American comics are in a terrible spot for the big two. They're in the red for the most part. They're not selling that well. Despite them putting all of these books out, people aren't really enthusiastic about it. There's no like relationship where they'll say a blockbuster movie comes out or a show that people maybe enjoyed, and that equals based on a comic book, so Marvel, DC, and that equals sales. That's not what we're dealing with here. However, there is other people in the same damn market across the way in Japan that are seeing the complete opposite. Their animes sell the mangas. Their mangas sell animes. And as well as that, from a content perspective, a lot of people have been fed up with the direction that the big two have been going in. And so people in America, and this is what happened, I believe it was April of this year, the first time ever, according to the MBD book scans, there was the top 10 most sold in America. In America, in terms of these adult graphic novels, there was no American representation. The first time that had ever happened. No American representation. So you have people basically that have went to manga and what they have to offer that were maybe comic book fans before. And that really goes to show that void right now is being filled by those people over there. So a lot of that, going back to the content, is because nowadays I would make the argument that it's not about I think it's an improper way to word it to say like, okay, someone says like comics have never been political or comics are political or whatever. I think that's a bad way to word it. I think more so what's happened and what makes it different from the past and the present is that with Marvel and DC, there was a far more balance, right? So you'd have these, you maybe have guys that leaned one particular way socially. But you also had like these other like guys who maybe were like uber pro-American, and what you would deem as the opposite side of the political spectrum, which I don't necessarily agree with that. That being the opposite side, but you get what it is that I'm saying. It was presented with more balance. Now with the social issues, so aside from the political stuff, which for the most part, that's what people are talking about. The great Stan Lee talked. I covered a video of him talking about this subject matter, and he says like he always puts social issues like underlaying the plot, and in the background. Never did it get in the way, and he never wanted to beat the audience over the head with it. That is the difference really between nowadays and back then. So things were more maxed, if you will, and the more up for interpretation, which most good work is like that anyway. Whereas to now, no, it's the audience, or the writers are beating the audience over the head with their political or social preferences. Right now, Screen Rant is a hack, one of the same guys. Screen Rants, IGNs, Comic Book Review, all those websites, all a bunch of fucking hack access media types who say whatever they need to say in order to ensure them to get some access. And because people are realizing, or they're starting to realize how many more people are going to the manga space, specifically because they're tired of like the bullshit that they see in modern comics, they're trying to hijack what manga does and what it's historically done and trying to say, manga's always been political, or in this quote, Screen Rant said, and it's covered by Bounty in the Comics, Screen Rant said manga is just as political as anything published by Marvel or DC. That is not a true statement, excuse me. That is a false statement, and we know that. You don't see shit like this for the most part in your mangas, at least not with like their top guys, right? This was a book, and I covered this, where they had basically Trump being depicted as the Joker, or rather Joker was using him as a puppet. I can't remember, was it Frank Miller that did this, if I'm not mistaken? Who was it? Yeah, it was Frank Miller that did this, which he's not the type that's been like one to shy away from the political stuff anyway. But you get what it is I'm saying. This is pretty much on the fucking nose for you guys that are watching this live. That's clearly fucking Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Like this couldn't be any more on the nose. You don't deal with that stuff with Jujutsu Kaisen or what other top mangas or Demon Slayer or One Piece or something like that, right? This is pretty on the fucking nose, right? You don't deal with that type of stuff. Covering the article, it says a recent and disingenuous attempt by Screen Rant to push the tired argument that manga is just as political as anything published by Western comic publishers, specifically Marvel and DC, was met with deserved derision and by fans capable of recognizing the difference between a political theme and political preaching. Again, this is why saying it that way was always dishonest. It's not that like there aren't literal politics in a comic book or something. Yeah, there's going to be something political in it if it's anything regarding the government or there's a government in that universe of that comic. The problem is that, again, one way is like in today's day and age, you're beating your audience over the head with one side being the more approved side of thinking. It says an attempt to disparage the Japanese storytelling medium written by Site comic book news editor manga junior lead Evan Mullican hit the outlet's front page December 19th, bearing this condescending and frankly insulting headline. And that was the one. He's saying Western readers never realized. It was always political, but Western readers never realized it. And it'll be something simple as guy go against bad dictator. Oh, that's political. Like, man, that's not what we're fucking talking about, man. And right here it says they were pointing to such classic Japanese works as Astro Boy. And they say that, he insists throughout this entire piece that not only was Marvel's introduction to MODOK, modeled after then President Donald Trump, equivalent to deep well political themes and messages and imagery have been put present in manga since the medium's earliest days, but again, insultingly, that some of these political messages and themes are easy to ignore for less politically savvy readers. Oh, so it's one of those, well, you can't see it because you're not as smart as me type of motherfuckers. He said all three of these classic manga use the then current events and the Japanese political landscape of their time to craft impressive and epic stories that are still influencing mangakas right now, or rather today. And this is Spider-Gwen Annual number 1 of Volume 1. So tokenized Spider-Man. And here's this MODOK. And he kind of looks a certain way. And obviously we're talking about borders and shit. Like, come on, they're not even like this is not what you get with current era of like Japanese work, and there's no reason to pretend like that's the case. And then he talks about inclusion and all kinds of dumb shit. He says, though Mullican found himself in disbelief at how readers who criticized the pandering introduction of the LGBTQ plus characters in the Western books took no issue with characters such as Ghost in the Shell's bisexual character or Sailor Moon's lesbian lovers. He says it should also be noted that in pursuit of his argument, Mullican attempted to push the false claim that due to her previously ingrained use of male pronouns resulting from her father's constant treatment of her as the son he desired, One Piece Yamato is transgender, despite such an idea only stemming from Western translators' decision to take the character's idealization of male Odin into consideration and transcribe blah, blah, blah. So they're trying to call, I didn't even hear about that they were trying to call her trans. Moving to more modern works, Mullican then conflated his own interpretation of themes of series, including One Punch and Demon Slayer, with the author's own intentions, as evidenced perfectly by his assertion that considering Middle Eastern flair, it's difficult not to see Full Metal Alchemist Ishbalan's conflict as analogous to the war in Iraq, as given FMA's setting in an alternate history Germany, the fictional conflict is actually more analogous to the Herero Wars of 1904 and 1908. One Punch Man is about the hollow and unfulfilling nature of a work-focused society. See, this is reaching. This motherfucker's reaching like a motherfucker. My Hero Academia explores the pressure put on young adults to be exceptional and how that pressure can ultimately hurt and alienate. What the fuck does that have to do with political shit, though? Demon Slayer uses this. This is what this guy from Screen Rant basically attempted to do is grab like an overall arching theme and then say, well, because it could be applied to something else, because it's like a universal truth or something, it's then political. Like that's reaching, man. And he knows that. He's just being disingenuous. He just doesn't like the fact that people are pointing out that, I don't know, we don't see generally stuff like this for the most part in like some of the top mangas. That's not what we see. These guys are fucking disingenuous as fuck. Returning to the topic of Modek, Molekane further contended that the appearance of Trump in a 2020 Death Note one-shot was the equivalent to Marvel's groan-inducing Reddit cheer-drawing parody, seemingly because both works are merely featured to reference the former president. So basically, if you reference the president, then it's the same thing. While some readers were complaining about Marvel turning a politician into a supervillain, Death Note was preparing to do the same exact thing with the same exact politician. He recalled the series creators returned to the world of Death Note, blah, 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 with a blatant parody of Trump receiving whatever. However, there's a stark difference between the two. Molekane continues to either ignore or outright fail to see which is the craftsmanship or lack thereof with which each respective example address the same issue. The Death Note one-shot, while even if Trump's appearance was a personal expression of this guy's feeling towards the then president, this criticism was not only limited to a few panels, but also stood as a natural detour to the series' overall themes of power, control, and responsibility. Whereas to this is just, hey, character beats up Trump. Tokenized Captain America. Like, look at this panel, bro. This is something that Marvel Comics put out. Look at this. It's Trump being MODOK, essentially. And tokenized Captain America whooping up on his minions. Like, come on, bros. And again, it's not balanced. You know why? Because this is all you got from Trump for Marvel. You know what you got with Marvel when Obama was in office? You got him being on a cover of fucking The Amazing Spider-Man. And then there being an instance where he basically is drooling over the motherfucker. That's what you got. So they sack-rolled him. And then when it became someone that they didn't like, okay, now they depict him in a bad light. This is what I'm talking about with the lack of balance. And I think a lot of people have more issues with that. Yeah, a lot of it is that you're beating your audience over the head with the political horse shit, and they're not interested in that. But I think some more of it has to do with the lack of balance. So it's just one-sided, and it's boring as fuck. You wouldn't dare depict your you're not going to see Nancy Pelosi being MODOK or anything. You're not going to see that. Or AOC or some shit. No. Instead, you would just give AOC her own fucking book, and next thing you know, she's writing Black Panther or some shit. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.